Hello everyone! Thank you for joining me for another discussion video on what we might be expecting for the future of Final Fantasy XIV, and today we will be discussing the newest antagonist in the story that was introduced in patch 7.2, Calyx. So, who exactly is Calyx? Well, let's start off with what we do know about him for sure before discussing his potential role in the story. In 7.2, we were first introduced to him before the second attack on Solution 9. The real Sphene was the one who explained that 400 years ago, he was a brilliant scientist in Alexandria who mastered electrobe technology and was considered a progeny even at a young age. Back then, he was the one who led the research to find a cure for Levin's sickness. Ironically, he suffered from some kind of a terminal illness himself. During the final years of the Storm Surge, he also founded the collective which became the foundation for Preservation, all for the purpose of preserving Alexandria from the war. Now, it does seem that before the real Queen Sphene could die of Levin's sickness, she was preserved within an electrobe casket, presumably by Preservation, where she was kept in cold status for about 400 years. It also seems that Calyx was instrumental in creating the dome that sealed off Alexandria from the rest of the lightning-filled world as the Ninth was consumed by the war. After the dome was created, Preservation was also able to construct Everkeep right on top of the old Alexandria before Calyx and Preservation seemingly disappeared. When we're introduced to him, and though he doesn't come out and admit to it, it's safe to assume that this Calyx is also an Endless. How different he is as an Endless compared to other Endless, or even to the Endless Sphene, is hard to say, but it does seem that he has some level of control over the Endless Sphene as well as the Simulant. Through the Endless Sphene, the creation of things such as the regulators, using soul cells, and the concept of the cloud and live in memory were also constructed. And through the Simulant Sphene, he started to sow the seeds of chaos by distributing the Neo-Regulators to coax the people of Alexandria to become Endless. Though, for what end he plans to use these 500 Endless, that's hard to say. We're still waiting to see that. What we do know for sure is that in order to sustain those 5,000 Endless, he's going to need a lot of ether, which he plans to harvest from the remaining shards. And to do that, he needs the key, which is currently in the Warrior of Light's possession, and it's no secret that he set his sights on us just so he can try to claim it. Calyx is a different type of an antagonist compared to what we've had so far, and when you see him in the lineup of previous antagonists, he really does stand out. Such as in the case with Gaius and Thordan, who were the type who believed we should rule because it's our right, or Xenos, who was looking for an emotional connection. Yotsuyu wanted revenge. Emmett Selk was filled with a loneliness-induced hatred and longing for the past, and Medion was simply filled with despair for the future. The closest we would have to someone like Calyx would probably be Omega, who is a creature built on logic and intellect, but even then there was emotion driven behind its plan to grow strong enough to return home. And sorry to the Zoraljah fans, but I do think that an antagonist like Calyx is someone that we desperately needed in Dawntrail from the beginning. Rather than having someone who had major daddy issues, we could have had someone like Calyx working behind the scenes. He's cold, he's calculating, he's an intelligent antagonist that has killed off all manner of emotions inside him and relies upon logic rather than emotion to such a degree that he's really more machine or AI than human. Right now, our biggest thorn in our side is that we just don't know much about Preservation and its full goals. We do know that Calyx and Preservation's original purpose was to develop a cure to Levin's sickness, but at some point they turned their focus to developing a means to unlock the secrets of the key and master interdimensional fusion. That was where Oblivion was eventually created. That seems suspicious to me, and I can't help but wonder if this was the moment where the Ascians stepped in to get involved, or were they involved from the start? Now, this is mostly speculation on my point of view, but it seems that Preservation may have been greatly influenced by a sundered Ascian, both to discover the truth behind the key, but also to preserve their people while still eventually accomplishing the rejoining. Even if Calyx isn't a Sundered Ascian himself, it seems fair to think that he worked together with one, since he does have knowledge that only an Ascian would have, namely of the source and its reflections. He certainly seems to have the same mindset as the Ascians, who don't see the inhabitants of the shards as living people, rather as sundered imperfections, aka tools to be used. Which in and of itself isn't a bad idea, since it doesn't wholly bring back the pains of dealing with the Ascians again after Zodiark's destruction, but it does give us a chance to learn more information. Could Calyx have met another Ascian 400 years prior and was just being manipulated like how Gaius was? Most likely they told him he could unlock the secrets of Electrope's potential with soul manipulation to save him from his disease, but it's hard to say for sure. Or is it possible that he's a shard of an Ascian himself? Yoshi P did tell us before to remember the names and roles of the Convocation members. And if he is a Sundered Ascian, the most likely candidates would be either Dudelathon or Pashtariat. Dudelathon held the position of the Innovator and was responsible for the architecture and invention in Amaurot. It would certainly make sense, especially when you look at how Everkeep was constructed, and I can see a young Calyx being greatly influenced by someone like that. Though it does seem a bit unlikely, since it looks like their mask was eventually claimed by Gaius, though that's an easy workaround by just claiming that only another shard was destroyed. Pashtariat, on the other hand, was the seat of preserving law and order. Could be where they got the name Preservation from even. But chasing a stray Ascian to another reflection might be a decent hook for 8.0. Having said all that, Ascian influence may not necessarily be the case, since Preservation had been working on studying Azim's key for such a long time. It's possible they studied enough to discover the existence of the other shards and the swords for themselves, but unlikely. There is also a separate theory that he could be the 9th version of Azim's shard, possibly even be a dark reflection of Azim. Now, everyone was convinced that Golbez was the 13th reflection of Azim, and they were right, in a sense. But this could be the first time that we're actually seeing a reflected shard of Azim in the role of a true enemy, especially since we still don't have it confirmed who the shard of Azim's soul was in the 9th. In a sense, he is both an enemy to us and the Ascians, since he would be preserving everything as it is while looking forward to the future. So he's definitely unique in that sense. He's a bit of a wild card, since we just don't know what he's fully capable of yet. He was a born genius and had access to all manner of technology that would lead him to becoming the founder of Preservation, which means that he is responsible for not only the creation of Everkeep, but the army of cyborgs, the regulators, living memory. All of that came from him. He's also been alive for 400 years, or, as close to alive as you can be, with him being an endless, but in either case, he had plenty of time to do tons of research on so many things. We don't know how much information he got from the Ascians. It could just be about the reflections and the source for all we know, but he seems to have made the most of what he learned. It seems that he's the ultimate nihilist here, since he doesn't seem that concerned about what happens or not. To him, it feels like everything here is just one big experiment to him, to find a practical problem to solve for the sake of doing so. Could he be trying to seek the original form of the ancients? They had eternal life and only chose to end their lives after they felt they accomplished what they wanted in life. Seems most likely to me that Calyx's goal is the recreation of the ancients. Regardless, because of all this, he, and perhaps Preservation as a whole, have potential of becoming one of the biggest threats we've faced till now. Personally, it doesn't seem to me that Calyx is even interested in dealing with the Warrior of Light, and only seeing them as someone standing in his way. At the least, he didn't seem that invested with them until the trial fight, but I don't think it was really us that Calyx was looking to gauge. Rather, it was when we used Azim's crystal against Zelenia. Just before the fight took place, there was a reaction shot and a "there it is." That was his goal, not to kill us, but to force us to use Azim's crystal so he could scan it. He knows the crystal interacts with the key somehow, because he comes out and pretty much admits he watched our fight with the Queen Eternal, and probably read the data when the crystal had that interaction with the key before the fight. I will say that I do enjoy the fact that he didn't waste time and went straight for the Warrior of Light directly, doing what most villains don't do right away, and realized that his plans have a much better chance of succeeding if you take the Godslayer out of the equation. Another thing is that we don't know if he's working alone or with other possible members of Preservation. I mean, unless Calyx is all that's left, they still need to be introduced before we can actually defeat them, and I don't think there's enough time in 7.3 to do all of that, at least not in an interesting, satisfying way. What I think is going to happen is that in 7.3 we're going to have Memoria as a dungeon with Necron as a trial fight, both of which were the final dungeon and boss fight in Final Fantasy IX, and it seems an appropriate way to end Dawn Trail's story, which, I've said this before, is just one long love letter to Final Fantasy IX. How it will go and why is tough to say. What if we finally give the key over to Y'shtola for study? I mean, they brought that up multiple times that she wanted to study it, and I do think she's going to make full use of her time with at least giving it a quick examination. If Calyx were to attack us again, but realize we didn't have the key, he may still try to take Azim's crystal. Maybe he sees this as a hostage situation. Like when Omega trapped the Warrior of Light before Midgardsormr rescued us, he could try something similar if he's able to trap us within some kind of a trap of lightning. He could give the ultimatum to the Scions: give me the key and the Warrior of Light lives, or don't hand it over and the Warrior of Light dies. That would definitely be interesting to see. Which does bring up another important question in where is Calyx's memories being stored? I mean, we shut down living memory and yet he's still around. So until we're able to find where his memories are being stored, I don't think we'll be able to actually defeat him. Not only that, but he's already apparently got room for 5,000 Endless, so where are they going to be put? I'm not going to lie, but it's going to be hard to wrap everything up for 7.3. Perhaps he uses the memories of the 5,000 people who are using the Neo-Regulators to create Memoria. I mean, he's got to put them somewhere, and I don't know, maybe he's created a new living memory to put them in. Perhaps the fear of the combined emotions of those 5,000 people is twisted into the form of Necron, either by accident or maybe as some kind of guardian to prevent the Warrior of Light from putting a stop to it. I mean, whatever he's planning, I have a bad feeling that he is going to win before the end. We may be able to physically defeat him, but his actions are going to be what sets off the story for the next expansion, whether that's somewhere on the source or another reflection. But anyway, that's all I've got for right now. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you think of my theories, and I love to hear your own for what's coming for us in 7.3. Calyx is so interesting to me as an antagonist because he's just dead inside, basically. It's like he killed off all emotion inside him and he just works solely on logic. And those type of people are oftentimes the most dangerous because they don't have empathy. Okay, they don't feel for other people, and that's just going to cause a lot of destruction and damage, especially since they don't care what happens to the people. This is all for the sake of his experiments. When I first saw him in the trailer, I was convinced that he was going to be a kind of Hojo-like villain, and he might just definitely be that in the future. But I do think he does have a lot of potential of being one of the most interesting antagonists that we've had so far. As for when 7.3 is going to be coming out, I'm estimating it's going to be released around August 5th at the earliest. That's just a guess on my end, but in either case, we still have plenty of time to get ready for it. I always look forward to hearing for more theories or predictions to talk about, so if anyone does have any suggestions, I'd love to hear them, and hopefully I'll be able to come up with something good. Anyway, that's it for right now. I'll be posting again as soon as I can, so until next time everyone, please take care.